It's another rainy day, and while I love walking in the rain, I don't have the camera gear for that. So here I am, and I just wanted to talk about work today. Work doesn't have to be, what's the word? It doesn't have to be a drag. It doesn't have to be a slog. It doesn't have to be something we dread. But it all depends on our choices and our perspective. You know, from a very young age, I let curiosity lead me. It is one of the reasons that I discuss in my video about never building a career and never wanting to, because I always looked for interesting opportunities or work that would present me with a unique experience. I didn't consciously do that. I think that was just part of my nature, the curious aspect of it, or of me, I should say. But it wasn't until I was in my late 20s when I took a job in Asia and I was teaching English. And I was teaching English to adults. And I taught in the evenings mostly, although sometimes in the mornings. But in the evenings, it was a very interesting atmosphere. You get people coming out of work right after dinner or right before dinner, and it was like a social club almost. People were really excited to be in class. And part of that, though, is because I did have them, discussing realistic things that are relevant to them. But I realized one night, standing in class, that I was getting paid to have one of the most unique cultural experiences of my life. That in fact, all of these students were my teachers and I was their student. I may have been assisting them in developing their English language skills, and these people ranged from like early 20s all the way up until their 70s, retired businessmen and women who just wanted to keep up their English because they traveled abroad in their retirement years and plan to keep doing so. And here were all these students teaching me about their culture, and I will never forget the night I realized how lucky I was. I was standing in the back corner of the classroom, and I had just been assisting the students that were back there, and I stood back and listened to a student ask me if I had heard of something, and it was something I did not know about, but it was about what their culture believed stimulated sexual prowess, and in terms of different foods. And I said I had not, and they went on to tell me these things, and I just realized this is not an experience that tourists would get. Tourists pay to have all these experiences, but here I am having an immensely authentic, real cultural experience, and I'm getting paid for it. And I just realized how fortunate I was, even though it was just on a topic that, wasn't necessarily of the most importance. It was just that I realized that here I am getting paid to have these interactions, to learn these things. And I felt super fortunate. And from there on out, I realized the difference between the work I was doing and a lot of the work that my friends were doing or my former classmates in college. And I felt so glad that I did not pursue a career, that in fact I just followed my nose I followed my own curiosity instead. And I think that opportunity is available to all of us. We have to just choose to make it our reality. You know, a lot of people always come up with reasons why they can't do something. My mentality is the opposite. I find ways to make things happen. If I want something bad enough, I find a way to make it happen. And I believe that most of us can do that. We can do that. We just have to find the tiny steps that we can take to move us in that direction every day. You know, I think that we overburden ourselves with responsibilities, but we also overburden ourselves with, and by responsibilities, I mean, for example, this is a very common trend in like China and Japan, and not Japan a little less, but South Korea, and that's the keeping children occupied every second of the day and keeping them in a million different activities, etc. And I'm bringing this up because Americans have this tendency too, and that is to overschedule their children. Could you imagine how less stressful your life would be and your child's life would be if you didn't do that? Your wallet would be better off, first of all, if that matters to you. I think it matters to a lot of people. But also, there's less running around. There's more time to relax together. I mean, I think that is far more valuable than sending your kid off to 5 different activities every week. You know, one every day after school. And that's what I mean by overburdening ourselves with responsibilities. I think, of course, children are a gift, and I'm not saying if you want children and you would derive immense joy from parenting, then I celebrate your choice to have children. But it's how people raise their children that stress themselves out. And so that's just one example of how we overburden ourselves with responsibilities. You know, it's like how we structure our child's lives. But also, we do silly things. We overcommit and overextend ourselves by saying yes to social engagements that we're not even, you know, thrilled about. Like, if it's not a hell yes, don't do it. That's kind of my attitude. And yeah, I think that the more we remove unnecessary commitments and responsibilities from our lives, the easier it is to make our way to interesting work. And for some, it's as simple as just changing jobs. There's not a lot of legwork in between, except finding that job that you want and going after it. But for some people, they do need to simplify their lives to make it happen. And for that, I totally get it. But there are a lot of unique experiences out there. You know, I work in hospitality, and I get paid to have experiences and to live and be in places that most people would never, you know, that people pay a lot of money to be in, or in places that most people never get a chance to go to because they are for the elite. And by elite, I just mean financially elite. I'm not making character judgments on human value. I don't believe money makes you more important than anyone else. So it's available to all of us, particularly those of us who are fortunate enough to live in a developed world and already have our basic needs met. I am aware that there are people who do not have those basic needs met, and for which case, and for whom I have great compassion, although I do believe that they can transform their lives too. I believe we all can do that. So if we just take the approach of living an interesting life, finding interesting work, work that pays us to have unique experiences, I can list some of these. Like, for example, we all pay to go on airplanes, but pilots have an extremely unique experience. We pay to go scuba diving, but the dive master gets paid to live in exotic places and to take people diving every single day. I actually know someone who, when he got divorced, flew off to Thailand, and he had been a diver for a long time, and he became a dive master and he didn't stay in Thailand, but he did stay in Southeast Asia, and he made decent money. And he, by virtue of being in the ocean every day, he lost a lot of weight, which he was thrilled about. But he got paid to do what he loved. Like, he got paid to do what he had been paying thousands and thousands of dollars to do year after year after year. And I think that's a perfect example. Also, I know some fishing guides, and they get paid to go and be outdoors and go camping and canoeing and fishing. And these guys get paid anywhere from like $300 to $500 a day to do what they love, to be outdoors. Sure, there is work involved. Yes, it's not going out with your buddies, but these guys meet some really fascinating people and get to take these people on great adventures. And some of them build long-term friendships with their clients, and get to be in some of the most beautiful places in the world. And I think that's a fantastic, unique experience. And there are lots of these type of fields that we can get into. We just have to look around and use our brains a little bit, and to think outside the box. And actually, I would say just stop thinking outside the box and throw the box away. So anyway, I hope this helps if you are feeling down and out in relation to your work. There's a way to transform it. All right, that's all for today. I'll see you next time.